Hey, what's up, guys? Houston here. Look, if you have a low credit score, okay, and you're trying to get a loan, then we know that you can't go to the banks and credit unions because of your bad credit, right? Now, the only exception is what? Navy Federal. All right, there are some other ones out there, but Navy Federal is probably the prime suspect for giving you a loan. Actually, they wouldn't even give you a loan. They actually give you a credit card instead of a loan. So here's the thing that I would tell you. There's 5 things that you have to consider when trying to get a loan, and I'll tell you some of the lenders as well. One, you have to show steady source of income, okay? And so here's the thing about it with some people, whether you're on disability benefits, whether you're on welfare or whatever type of government assistance and stuff, if you got a 300 credit score and you meet the income requirements, there are lenders, and I'll share those lenders with you, that would be willing to give you a loan. Also, for you guys that are in the gig economy and stuff like that, I always tell you that when you're in the gig economy, you can't show proof of income and stuff like that. What you have to do, you have to go to places like Giggle Finance that offers loans up to $5,000. However, when you're in the gig economy, you have to show proof of deposits in your checking account for 3 to 4 times a month. All right. And that's for a 90-day period in order to qualify with them. Right now, here's something else that you guys should understand in terms of not only steady source of income, but also meeting the minimum income. So what that means is that you may be on disability, okay? However, like after taxes and stuff like that, they usually want you between $800 up to $2,000 a month, right? In order to qualify you for a loan. Now, again, I always tell people when you're going for loans with certain lenders, and it's on my website as well that I made a video. There's certain loans that if you're $25,000 below, there's loans when you're $35,000 in annual income, I should say, and below, and then there's $45,000. So there's certain loans, and the $45,000, it covers all of the loans, right? But the thing about it is actually meeting that minimum income threshold. So you don't have to necessarily have $45,000 or more, but it's just certain lenders that actually will work with you if you have the right income threshold. Just like universal credit, right? So with universal credit, you have to have at least 2 trade lines on the credit file, right? The credit file has to be at least 2 years old. So here's something that, again, is a good example. $50,000 they'll give you up, but again, you have to meet those criteria. Now, some of you all may not have the aging on the credit file. You may be working on your credit file and you may have deleted everything. So how do you get that aging back, right? So then that's the reason I told you, like adding rental payments that can re-age your credit file to an older credit history. Also, in terms of also adding authorized users on the credit file, right? Also, with adding utilities on the credit file, you're able to actually age your credit file. That's probably the top 3 ways to age your credit file, all right? And just be careful with the authorized users, because you want to make sure if you're going to get an authorized users, make sure that it's not over 30% utilization. I usually tell people 10%. And the reason I tell people that 10% is because the lower the utilization, the more your credit score will go up. Now, just also keep in mind when you add those authorized users, there are certain lenders that won't touch you that's using like a FICO 8 scoring system. However, the lenders that I'm talking about, they don't use a FICO 8 scoring system. They use third-party scoring systems like Clarity, Factor Trust, LexisNexis, okay, Teletrack. They usually, more likely, they'll use either Clarity, Factor Trust, or Teletrack. They have DataX as well that they'll use instead of like your major credit bureaus. So that's something you also have to take into consideration. Active checking account. This is something else. Like some people, you may have a checking account with a Chime. So with some lenders, they may be able to work with Chime. Okay. Now, in terms of the easier lenders, when you're talking about trying to get up to $50,000 or more, there's certain lenders, then when they're trying to verify that income and those deposits, again, the agent of the credit file and the accuracy of the information, that's the reason I tell you, like the addresses and things of that nature, those can get you denial because they have the old data in those third-party credit bureaus. So like if you go to Avant, right, they offer up to 35,580 credit score. Okay, so they're going to use these third-party credit bureaus. Just when I mentioned like Universal Credit. So they would use those. You have low credit finance. They go up to $50,000. Okay. However, they are a platform. Okay, and they use with tribal lenders and stuff like that. So they try to make it much easier for you to qualify for a loan. Then you also have Max Personal Loans. Now, Max Personal Loans again is a tribal lender. One of the things I continue to tell you guys, you have to be very careful because with some of these lenders, in terms of trying to qualify you, they may not be in your state. So that's also something you have to consider going after. Like if you're going after, say, like Viva loans, okay? There's two different type of Viva loans. There's a Viva Payday loans that offer up to $5,000, and the interest rate starts at, I think it's 5.99, go up to 35.99, but it's a platform. Okay, and then you have Viva Loans. They're a platform, but they go up to $15,000. Now, here's the thing about it. The two of them is that the Viva Payday Loans, they have a larger net, right? So they have access to more lenders to work with you versus Viva Loans that offers up to $15,000. So that's the reason, like, you would put in an application with Viva Loans and you may get denied. However, like with the Viva Payday Loans, they will approve you, right? And it's, again, not only because of the dollar amount, it's because they have a wider net to find a lender to work with you, especially like when you have a low credit score, you hitting around the 300s, 400s, 500. If you got a credit score that low, then you're going to look for lenders that are usually focused on offering you loans about $5,000, okay? And come to find out, most people, they're not even looking for $50,000 loan. They just want to know if they can get $5,000 loans. The banks and credit unions won't give that to you. However, again, like these platforms that I try to introduce you to. Now, again, I cannot stress this enough. Before you go after these loans, unless it's an emergency, then I would go to your HR and file that W-4 form. Okay, that tax exempt form. That's a interest-free loan. Okay, and I tell you to do that for 3 to 4 months in order to qualify, in order to get money to get caught up on bills and stuff. Also, if you got a car loan or something like that, and it's with a bank or credit union or with your finance, make sure that you call them. If you're struggling to make that payment, call them and see what they put that payment on the back end. So that way it doesn't screw up your credit, especially if you already have a low credit score. Some people don't care, but if you're trying to rebuild your credit, you don't want to miss your car payment, right? So like I know a lot of credit unions, they'll let you skip a pay. Even if you have a loan with them, they will allow you to skip a pay as well, right? So I'm just giving you some information to help you. Then, like I said, you as an entrepreneur, you have a Fundo. They offer up to $10,000, but you got to show proof of income, being in the industry for at least 90 days, okay? Making sure you have the 3 to 4 deposits per month. All right, minimum income is $1,500. So there are lenders out there to work with you guys, to help you guys. And so that's the reason I'm constantly trying to put this information out, because a lot of people don't think that it's possible. I get it all the time. Oh, it's not possible. Again, if you're not meeting those certain requirements, then of course it's not going to be possible. Another thing they're going to look at is verifiable contact information. So they want to know if if you put down an email or a phone number or something like that for to contact you, can they contact you? Now, again, going back to the credit bureaus, the thing about it with these third-party credit bureaus, they're looking to see, had you taken out a loan from them before? Had you not pay them? Are you in a bankruptcy? Another thing that can slow you down, if you already have multiple loans out. So sometimes with some of these lenders, if you have 2 or more loans already out, then they won't loan you any money because they look at you as a high risk. All right. Now, another thing is like the debt to income ratio. Again, when you have bad credit, again, with the banks being sensitive, credit unions being sensitive, that DTI, that debt to income ratio, you know that if you're above that 55%, they're not going to mess with you, right? So that's the reason you have to go to these other lenders like big buck loans that offer up to $5,000. So you have to go to places where you know you have a higher chance of approval. So again, that's the reason I try to tell you about certain loans and things like that. Also, again,